What is up? GoodMicWork back at you as promised with your post Money in the Bank Monday Night Raw review, the June 20th, 2016 edition. Happy summer solstice to all of you. First time in like 50 years there's a full moon on the summer solstice. It's awesome. Longest day of the year. It's a beautiful night here in San Diego. I hope it is wherever you live as well. In this episode, I'll be going through Raw, casually discussing the show. We'll look ahead to BattleGround, and we'll talk about a few other things at the end as well, including maybe a few more thoughts on Jerry Lawler, I'm not sure, some thoughts on the brand split, the WWE draft, and AJ Styles' appearance on Stone Cold's podcast. I haven't done this in a while. I try to only do it about one out of every 5 or so videos, so please bear with me while I welcome all the brand new listeners and new subscribers that may have come across me in recent weeks or months. Thank you for joining, and also if you'd like to subscribe to my second channel, the link is in the description. Follow me on Twitter at GoodMicWork, like my Facebook page, support me on Patreon, and you can go to my website, GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com, where you can purchase merchandise, view this YouTube video, and also download an audio MP3 of this commentary as well. I'm on iTunes, and I am on Stitcher Radio. I'm everywhere, so please check me out. We'll start right out with Raw here. Raw was an okay show, not great, C+ maybe, low B perhaps. But tonight was going to really lay the groundwork for BattleGround, and we knew there was going to be a lot of fallout after what Dean Ambrose pulled off last night. A very successful Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and a huge night for Dean Ambrose, not only winning the briefcase in the ladder match, but cashing it in just a couple of hours later and winning the WWE title. And I still find it amazing that in a 5-minute span, the entire Shield held the WWE title. It's mind-blowing. I'm glad they're giving Dean Ambrose the opportunity. He's a really fun character. I haven't been too high on him lately, and I was worried that he was going to fall into a slump, and maybe in about 6 months or a year from now he could be to Dolph Ziggler level, but boy did he bounce back. And, you know, my opinion is that I don't think this will be a terribly long reign. I think he'll definitely drop it probably by SummerSlam, probably not BattleGround. I'd like to see him escape at least one pay-per-view with the belt. But if I had to guess, I would think that maybe WWE put the belt on Dean Ambrose because they're interested in having him a former world champion. I don't know if Dean can work on the top of the card for 10 years to come. His style is a little different. He can get repetitive and stuff, and he has his weaknesses inside the ring. So I don't know. But a lot of top guys do. Shit, look at John Cena. So I'm not saying Dean Ambrose cannot work out, but I think they just wanted to give him the belt so he could be a former world champion, so he would not be left out, so they could refer back to how dominant and how successful those 3 men in the Shield became, all 3 of them becoming WWE champion. I think Dean being champion kind of fits that whole overall story and narrative a lot better, and I think that has a big reason to do with why they put the belt on him to begin with. So, and on top of that, it was a nice surprise. So they got the belt off Roman. I'm still blown away that he lost clean last night. That blows my mind. And then Dean, the cherry on top with him cashing in and winning the title, we were all surprised. The crowd in Las Vegas was hot. They were jacked. It remains to be seen if WWE can keep the momentum going and give us an awesome BattleGround and an awesome SummerSlam. A lot of things are about to change with the brand split in SmackDown and Raw, both going live starting on July 19th, and the WWE draft. So we'll talk about a little bit of that as we go through here. I want to start out with Raw and how it opened. The show opened as it should have, with the new WWE champion coming out to the ring to cut a promo. Right before the show, they showed him arriving to the building in a fucking taxi cab, a Prius taxi cab, and just gets out, and the cab starts driving away, and he has to chase it down. He's beating on the window. Stop, stop. He left the fucking belt in the back seat, which is hilarious because I've been in that exact same situation before, leaving my phone in the back seat of a cab, and I basically had to jump on the back of a cab one time to get him to stop so I could grab my phone. And because if I would have lost it, I don't know how I'd ever retrieve it. We paid cash for the ride, so I would have probably just lost it forever. So it kind of reminded me of that. You could tell he was proud to be WWE champion, cut a promo about how hard he worked. The fans showed him a lot of love. We knew we were going to get some interruptions. We knew all 3 members of the Shield were going to cut a promo here. It was only a matter of time before somebody interrupted, and Roman came down first, offered his congratulations to Dean Ambrose, and Dean said thanks, but I just want you to know that I would have cashed it in on you as well. No matter who won that match, I was coming out there. I like the fact that Dean was, referring to that, when everybody talks about how surprising it was. He goes, what are you talking about? I told you I was going to do it. I couldn't believe some fans actually had the nerve to criticize the show for being too predictable. Jesus Christ, how in the world could you possibly be unhappy with a finish like that. The guy you hate lost clean and lost the WWE title. And two guys that you like both won it, and you're still pissed? That's complete insanity. But anyway, Roman and Ambrose continue talking, and then Seth Rollins comes out all pissed off. So you knew this had to be sorted out some way. Shane McMahon comes out to the ramp and says, all right, we're going to settle this. What we're going to do is we're going to decide tonight who faces Dean Ambrose at the next pay-per-view for the WWE title. A one-on-one match, a rematch from last night's Money in the Bank, Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, number one contender match. So they were taking the long way here. I think a triple threat was extremely obvious to all of us. I seriously doubted that they would have a one-on-one match between two out of those three guys at BattleGround. I think the only main event you can really have here is the triple threat. And maybe this was a hot-shotted idea as well, because when the brand split happens, they might want to split up all three guys. I'm sure one of them will wind up on a different show than the other two. So if they're ever going to do a Shield three-way and a big match for the WWE title, they had to pull the trigger on that right away. So that might be another reason why we're seeing it right now. So I really have no issue with the main event of BattleGround. And by the way, since I'm talking about the main event of BattleGround, that means that, of course, the main event match one-on-one between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns did end in a double countout. Neither guy won. Dean Ambrose was out there doing commentary. He was very good. The match ended in a double countout. Shane McMahon comes out and says he wants to find out right now who the number one contender is going to be, and the match is not going to end like that. Dean Ambrose jumps off headset, gets in the ring, and actually offers to just fight both guys. So that's why Dean Ambrose is so hilarious, because he doesn't give a shit. Called himself the Dude, too, tonight, which was kind of funny, because I'm a big Dude fan and a big fan of the movie Big Lebowski. So that's all I could think about tonight when Ambrose was saying that stuff. But pretty funny, pretty ballsy, and Shane McMahon says, all right, you're not going to have to face him in separate matches. It'll be a triple threat match. So they went through all that, the number one contender match, all those promos, just to get to the outcome that we knew they were going to reach in the first place. Triple threat, main event, BattleGround, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose for the WWE title. So I'm looking forward to it. I've been waiting a long time for these guys to be involved in a triple threat for a big title. And this was something that we've been speculating on at WrestleManias, at SummerSlams, and we're getting it at BattleGround of all places. So I think BattleGround could be shaping up nicely. We also know that John Cena and AJ Styles are going to work again, because AJ came out there tonight and cut a really funny promo, how he was surprised that Gallows and Anderson interfered and cost John Cena the match, and he's pissed off because now John Cena has an excuse. AJ would have beaten him anyway. These guys just came out there and screwed everything up, so he calls them out and demands them to apologize, not only to him, but also apologize to John Cena. And you could tell the whole thing was just dripping with insincerity. John Cena then interrupts, stands on the ramp, cuts a promo, does a pretty good job, gets a little bit closer to the ring. AJ actually offers to let John Cena pick anybody in the club he wants to face other than AJ Styles. So Carl Anderson got a one-on-one match with John Cena that didn't even last very long, because the club jumped in the ring, obviously. I don't know why Cena didn't think that was going to happen, and completely beat the hell out of John Cena and left him laying again. So when you look at this feud so far, in the 3 or 4 weeks that it's been going on, John Cena has not looked very good in it. Most of the weeks on Raw, John Cena is getting beat down, and he lost at Money in the Bank. So if you think he's going to win at BattleGround, you are probably right. But just don't fly off the handle, because John Cena is definitely taking his share of beatings and losses from AJ Styles. So I'm sure next week or the week after we will have some sort of a formal announcement on what this match will be. You got to know there's got to be some sort of a stip in this, because Cena doesn't want to have happen to him what happened at the last match. So I guess we can speculate on what they might do. And then after that is the draft, and these guys could wind up on separate shows. If they don't, you could have a blow-off at SummerSlam. So a lot depends on this draft that's coming up in about a month now. Speaking of the draft, we had a one-on-one match tonight. First match on the show was Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn, and they've been playing up how these guys have been lifelong rivals. Sami Zayn ends up getting the win on Kevin Owens. Owens gets pissed, attacks Sami Zayn, and they start brawling all over the arena. They even go to commercial and come back, and they are still brawling. So these guys will have a match at BattleGround. You got to think that they have time for 1 or 2 more of these, and eventually I would say this would have to be blown off in like a loser leaves Raw match or something like that. So they're really playing up the fact that neither of these guys can go through life until they completely destroy the other one, and the only way to accomplish that might be to separate them on the brands. So I have no doubt at all that the match at BattleGround will be pretty badass, and I'm wondering if they will throw a stipulation at us during this match, since these guys hate each other so badly. We had another returning general manager tonight, and this one was the worst. This was like having a giant festering, pus-oozing wart on your testicles. John Laurinaitis, Johnny Ace, People Power, one of the worst, douchiest heels that exists. He is not liked on screen, and he is not liked off screen. He comes out there in one of his ridiculous red suits. Jim Cornette would be proud. Looks like a complete idiot, and just starts plugging WWE's draft and SmackDown moving to Tuesdays on July 19th and all of this, until Shane comes out and is like, "What are you doing here?" And Johnny is like, "Hey, I'm making my case to run SmackDown. I think I'm the perfect guy for the job, or I'll run Raw, or whatever you want." And Shane McMahon is like, "I don't think so, GTFOH. Hopefully that is just a one-time only shot and we don't see any more of this guy on TV. I know he's a great heel. He got semi-over when he was on screen and on camera a lot. I've just never been a fan, so keep him the fuck away from me. Sometimes it's the little things on WWE Raw that can make me smile. After Shane is done booting Johnny Ace off of the ramp and the stage, Enzo and Cass come out for their match with the Vaudevillains, and Shane happens to be out there still, and he does Enzo's dance, and the two of them kind of do their thing out there, and it was funny. Put a smile on my face. Enzo and Cass did defeat the Vaudevillains in a straight-up match, and kind of putting their name in the hat for contender for the tag team titles. We also had Baron Corbin beating the hell out of Zack Ryder. Match went a little bit longer than I thought it would. It wasn't a complete squash, but obviously Corbin is moving on from his feud with Ziggler, and had a more or less enhancement match tonight on Monday Night Raw. They should turn Zack Ryder heel or something. I mean, if he's on the show, if he's there, why don't they turn him heel? He's already got that look to him. He smiles. He's got a tan. He dresses funny. This guy could easily, be some sort of a douchey heel, or throw him in the Social Outcasts or something, or do something with him. He's just sitting there. Or fucking release him and let him go make some money in Japan or something. They actually had a title match tonight, too. Charlotte defended the women's title against Paige, and she ended up beating Paige, I think, with help from Dana Brooke, and as expected, we've all been waiting for Sasha Banks to make her return. After the match, when Charlotte and Dana are beating down Paige, Sasha's music hits, she comes out, huge pop, helps Paige run off Dana Brooke and Charlotte, and stands there with the WWE Women's title, basically saying, "I want the next shot at this thing." I love Charlotte's title reign. I think she's great, and the longer she holds it, the greater it is going to be when she finally does drop it. Charlotte, I think, should drop it to Sasha, because she's gone through everybody else, unless they bring up someone from NXT or whatever. Sasha is over as she is and as good of a worker as she is. I think she could definitely be next in line. So if they have a match at BattleGround, which they probably will, I'm hoping maybe Charlotte escapes that, and then they have the match at SummerSlam again, and Sasha wins at SummerSlam. So I'm kind of hoping that's what they wind up doing. And that'll be a very impressive long run that Charlotte had, almost a year. And they could even go for the record if they want. Maybe they can have Charlotte hold it for even a little bit longer and break Nikki's record, or whoever the hell owns that record these days. Divas title doesn't even exist. I don't know if they're going to acknowledge it or not, but it could be something they could do. But if I had my choice, SummerSlam would be the place for Charlotte to drop it. We also had the return of the Wyatt family tonight. Bray Wyatt let everybody know that he was back, and it's still just a three-man group because Luke Harper is on the shelf with a knee injury, I think. Can't wait to get him back. I love Luke Harper. And as we're waiting for Bray Wyatt to call out his next victim or his next feud, they are interrupted by, of all people, the New Day. I never even considered this. This could be a lot of fun. I'm into it. Why not? Can you get a more opposite combination of two teams? Jesus. You think of the exact opposite of the Wyatt family, it is the New Day. And I'm not thinking this can be a 6-month program or anything like that, and I kind of also had my heart set on Gallows and Anderson winning the tag team belts, which I'm thinking they might do with help from the Wyatt family. Maybe once that match takes place on Raw or something, Wyatt's can cost New Day the match, maybe setting up a 6-man at the pay-per-view or something like that. I don't know. But New Day coming out and confronting them and talking about how weird they are and shit like that. And then Bray Wyatt is like, "Look, guys, you made a big mistake calling us out and interrupting my return, coming out here and acting the way you do." And he starts talking, and Xavier kind of gets like entranced, and he starts walking towards the ring right in the middle of his catchphrase, which the fans did perfectly for him anyway. And I kind of thought that was funny. You were wondering, like, what is Xavier doing? But they pulled him back in, snapped him out of it, and New Day versus the Wyatt family, that is definitely interesting, and I can get behind it because I wasn't expecting it, and it's a feud I wasn't expecting. I don't think it's really a step down for the Wyatt family. The New Day is pretty over. They're tag team champions. They've held the belts for a long time. They will probably wind up falling to the Wyatt family. And with this draft coming up and the brand split, you got to wonder if New Day winds up dropping the belts and they feud with the Wyatt family and get beat, if they might disband the team. And if they did want to break up the New Day, I think the Wyatt family would be the perfect team to destroy them, to be the ones to officially end the New Day once and for all. And it could be a little bit of a way to boost the Wyatt family back up. So we'll find out. I think the feud has potential. As long as they don't do too much comedy, I know you're not going to be able to have these 6 men in the ring together without having some sort of comedy. I mean, one of these guys is going to put one of their unicorn hats on Strowman or something like that. You know that's going to happen. So I'm okay with it a little bit because there's definitely some comedic angles they could use in this feud, to say the least. But I just don't want them to overdo it, is all I'm saying. The only other match I have written down for Raw, I hope I'm not forgetting anything, was Rusev versus Titus O'Neil. Titus is pissed off because of what Rusev did to him and his kids last night at the pay-per-view. And I gotta say, I'm such a big Titus fan. I think he's awesome, but I'm not feeling him. You know, they're trying to give him this opportunity. Rusev humiliated his family last night. He had this awkward Skype call on the Raw pre-show. They do these stupid-ass Skype calls sometimes, and it never looks very good, and it's always fucked up, and the transmission is bad. And they had Titus on there, and Booker T's trying to get him riled up, and he definitely says he's mad, and he's pissed off, and he's angry at Rusev, but you didn't believe it. You just didn't believe it. It didn't feel real at all, and neither did his promo backstage when he was talking to Renee Young. He was, looking off into the distance, and I had heard not long ago that in recent years, WWE has, for some reason, told the wrestlers to stop looking into the camera, which I think is fucking stupid. But Titus, if he would have been maybe looking at the camera, maybe been a little bit more intense, maybe yelled a little bit more, it would have helped or been a little bit more believable. But he doesn't look like a guy. He didn't make you believe that his kids and his family was really threatened. And then he went out there for his match. He didn't even want the match. He just got in there and started brawling with Rusev, wound up kicking his ass, was pretty brutal and pretty vicious. But again, I wasn't believing it all the way. I mean, Rusev bumped around for him, don't get me wrong. Rusev took a hell of a beating. I guess it still is remained to be seen whether or not they give him a run with the U.S. belt, because he has revenge on his mind now. And after what Rusev did to his family, maybe they could throw him a bone and give him a shot with the belt. But, I'm also fine with them keeping Rusev strong and have him keep on rolling and racking up an impressive winning streak just like he did a couple years ago. So I guess at BattleGround, Titus O'Neil's kids will be on a pole or something like that. I don't know what kind of match they're going to do, but they're going to do something. I mentioned the draft earlier on. WWE did announce when that draft would in fact be taking place, and it's going to be taking place on the very first SmackDown that airs live on July 19th. Now that's smart. I was kind of hoping they would do that because you need to have that show, that very first show, be a huge show, and that definitely will be. That will be the night where we find out where everybody lands. And I'm looking forward to that, and a lot is going to change after that. And like I talked about, some of these matches and feuds that are going on right now, they might not be going on in a month's time. And by the time we get to SummerSlam, things are going to be completely different. So it's hard to even look ahead to SummerSlam because you don't know where everybody's going to be and what show they're going to be on. And there's also the pretty interesting story about WWE contacting a lot of former talent. Guys like Kurt Angle's name has been thrown around, Goldberg, Carlito, Rey Mysterio, Jeff Hardy, John Morrison, Shelton Benjamin, Stevie Richards, all sorts of guys have been tossed around. So it looks like they're trying to get some star power to really help launch this brand extension, because these shows, this is a big risk and a big idea for the WWE. They want it to work, and I would love to see them bring in a bunch of guys. The Goldberg rumors have been running rampant because he did the 2K16 commercial, and every time WWE has brought back a former star for a video game, they've come back into the company. So Goldberg, I think it's getting more and more likely that we actually see him. I don't know at age 50 or whatever he is, how he can perform in the ring, but if he came back for one more match, got inducted in the Hall of Fame, I think it could be very possible around next year for WrestleMania, or maybe sooner with the brand split. Also bringing back in Kurt Angle. I mean, if they're willing to talk to him now after all this time, that would be awesome to see him come back in. Some story I even read, maybe somebody told me that, but they were like, they could bring in Kurt Angle and team him with American Alpha and move them up to the main roster, and that would be a lot like Team Angle or whatever the hell him and Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin did all those years ago, and Kurt could be like a mentor to these guys. I would love to see that. That could limit Kurt's role and only have him wrestle sometimes, and he could still be a presence on TV nearly every week, so that could be a good position for him. I would love for Jeff Hardy to end this ridiculous shit that he is doing in TNA and come back for one final run before he gets too old and cement his spot as one of the all-time greats and cement his WWE legacy. I don't know what the hell he is doing down there. But Jeff, Jesus, get your ass back up to the WWE. You got time for one more run, and you can ride off into the sunset, and no more Brother Nero. So I, for one, am looking forward to the brand extension. After that news of all these former stars potentially coming back, I think it could be a lot of fun. It could shake things up. Like I've said so many times in the past couple of years, things have not been that great. Fans have been complaining the majority of that time. So for the WWE to shake things up, I think it's something that we at least have to embrace because it's something different. And we really weren't expecting it. We're going to have another world champion again, which in a way will be nice. A lot of people don't want two world champions. I've always been a big advocate of having one world title. But I'm also willing to embrace the positives of this. And the positives of this is that more guys now have the opportunity to be a world champion. Because when WWE had two titles, no matter which one you won, you are still referred to as a former world heavyweight champion in some form. So with two belts, guys like Kevin Owens can get an opportunity. Maybe even Cesaro, AJ Styles, Seth Rollins. There's now two big world titles to go around, and it can help build other guys' legacies. Then you throw the IC strap on one show, the US strap on another. This could work. I'm not completely sold on it yet, but I think it has the potential to work provided they do it right. And that's a big if, because sometimes it seems like a bunch of fucking orangutans run WWE. Other things I want to get into, really nothing to elaborate on the Jerry Lawler situation. I briefly touched on it last night during my Money in the Bank reaction video, but him and his wife did have an incident over the past few days, and it landed him in jail, or got him arrested anyway. They were released. It does look like it's going to blow over. Jerry Lawler, I don't believe, was really at fault. The only thing he's at fault for is marrying an 11-year-old. But she came home all drunk and was a little bit aggressive and maybe even a little bit violent, and yelling took place, and they got physical. So Lawler, a lot of people have rushed to his defense, say, hey, he would never hit a woman, he doesn't even drink. We've never heard of issues like this from Jerry Lawler before. Lawler's not even really my favorite person. He blocked me on Twitter for no reason whatsoever. I've really been turned off by his commentary in recent years, and really wouldn't care if he went away. I was scared as hell for him when he had the heart attack and everything. Everybody wanted him to get better, and we're glad that he survived that situation and that he's in relatively good health for someone his age. But still, overall, I've just kind of lost my love for Jerry Lawler a little bit. So this incident has gotten him suspended indefinitely from the WWE. They have a zero-tolerance policy for domestic incidents, but I have a feeling that Jerry Lawler will be back. It sounds like, from all the news that we've been getting and from all the facts that we've been hearing, it looks like this was probably an isolated incident. But if these two are engaged, they're not even married yet, and they're having fights like this, I don't know how healthy that marriage is going to be. But it's not my business, it's Jerry Lawler's business. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw Jerry Lawler back before the end of the summer. Last but not least, I want to talk about AJ Styles on the Stone Cold podcast. I turned this on right after Raw. I actually like when these podcasts come on, because right after Raw, what I can do is put the podcast on one of my computers and then use the other computer to put together my intro and my, screen pick for my commentaries and stuff, which is usually about a 30-minute process. So I watched a good portion of the podcast while I was doing that, and they brought up a lot of interesting stuff, just like Stone Cold does with every guest. They talk about their childhood and their early life and all of that. Oh, and incidentally, Stone Cold did shout out the Cleveland Cavaliers for their unbelievable NBA championship that they won last night in Game 7 against Golden State, and gave a big loving shout out to Kevin Love, who we saw celebrating on TV during the big champagne celebration and the press conference and all of that, wearing an Austin 316 shirt, and he had the Broken Skull belt with him as well. So Kevin Love is a huge Stone Cold Steve Austin fan, and I think Austin really appreciated that, and he put over Kevin Love and the Cleveland Cavaliers and their victory huge to start off the podcast. But when AJ got there, they talked about his childhood, his upbringing. He had a little bit of a rough one, because he lived in the South. His father was a Marine. He drank a lot. He even got beat up a little bit by his father. Still claimed his dad as a good person, and he loves him, but he got a little bit out of hand when he was drunk. Talked about how he got into the business and how he became a wrestler and who trained him and all this shit. And then finally, I was wondering, to myself, I said, if they are ever going to mention TNA's name ever, ever, this has to be the place to do it, because Stone Cold is supposed to pull no punches in these interviews. He's supposed to be mostly free to do whatever he wants, and so I was going to be really disappointed if they did not talk about TNA. But not only did they talk about TNA, they talked about TNA a lot. Talked about how many years he had been there. They talked a little bit about Dixie Carter, some of the financial problems the company was having, the 6-sided ring as opposed to the 4-sided ring, what it was like when Hogan came in, and even why he left there. And it really came down to money. And he said, I feel like someone of my level deserved to get paid, and they didn't pay me, so I left. So he didn't really bury TNA. I mean, he talked and spoke well of his time, all the great matches he had with guys like Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle and stuff like that. So he was very kind and gracious about his TNA career, but he was also very honest as well. So I like the fact that they actually brought up TNA. Good for you, WWE. They brought up TNA, but they censored like 2 cuss words that Austin said. I didn't hear him. I think they muted him or something, and then he had to apologize for it. It's like Vince was in his earpiece saying, hey, apologize for swearing. It's the WWE fucking network. What is the big deal? I kind of got a kick out of that, but the whole podcast was actually really entertaining. AJ's a very likable guy. There's a few things about his life and his personality and maybe some opinions he might have about certain things that I'm not in complete agreement with him on, but he seems to be really well liked, and everybody respects him. And of course, his work in the ring, Austin couldn't say enough good things about him, about how innovative and how amazing he was, or is, with his offense and his ring style. And you can just tell that he really went through the right path. I'm glad that AJ never came to the WWE before this, because he had a whole career, a whole lifetime of wrestling that he was able to gain experience and become the star that he is. Had he come to the WWE in 2001 after the WCW buyout, he probably wouldn't have amounted to anything, and he admitted that openly on the podcast. So, things happen for a reason, and in the end, things work out if you work hard. And I'm really happy to see AJ get this opportunity with the WWE. He put over the WWE huge, says it's a great professional atmosphere, talked about how great the catering was, which I got a kick out of. Austin, incidentally, asked him if he had any heat from knocking the Miz's teeth out. And AJ was like, none whatsoever. Nobody got on my case about it or gave me a hard time about it, which I was so happy to hear, because if there's one thing that annoys me more than anything, it's the stories of the backstage, high school, bullshit, political nonsense that you have to deal with in the WWE. I mean, they have things like Wrestler's Court, for fuck's sake. If the locker room tried to take me to Wrestler's Court, I would say, no thank you, I quit, goodbye. Take your Wrestler's Court and shove it up your fucking ass. That's ridiculous. We're grown-ass adults. So the fact that people respected AJ enough to not hold that botch against him, and even put over The Miz. I mean, hell, AJ is like, The Miz is a lot tougher than people give him credit for. And I've even warmed up to The Miz in recent weeks as well. He's off doing his movie right now, so the Intercontinental Champ has not graced us with his presence on Monday Night Raw, but he's been doing those vignettes with Maurice, and I guess they've been keeping us up to date on The Miz's busy life. So when he comes back, it'll be good to see him, and I don't even know who he's going to feud with next, but it was cool to hear AJ Styles put over someone like The Miz. I mean, you talk about 2 guys that are probably beloved and hated by a lot of the smart wrestling audience. It probably really confuses them when a wrestler they respect puts over somebody that they hate. So all in all, it was a pretty informative interview. If you've not checked it out, go to WWE Network and watch it. I'm sure you can go to Podcast One as well and download it there, because Austin has all of his podcasts up on that site. So should be very easy to find, and I highly recommend it. It was definitely a good listen, and it was nice to put AJ Styles in front of that WWE audience and help them get to know him. And he's right in the middle of this big program with Cena. He's already worked with Roman Reigns. He's been there for 6 months, and he's worked with the 2 top guys. To me, that speaks volumes of the level of respect that WWE must have for him, because it's not like them to bring in an outsider, who's been away from WWE and never worked there for all these years, and put him over on top right off the bat. He didn't have to go to NXT. He didn't have to feud for the Intercontinental title. None of that stuff. He is on top from the moment he walked in the door. And I think that's awesome. Trust me, they need as many top guys as they can get right now, because they're about to split up the brand. So I liked everything I heard from AJ Styles. Very entertaining podcast. And like I said, check it out. So I think that'll be it for me for this week. I am out of here. You probably won't hear from me again until next Monday. Maybe I'll come up here with some sort of a mid-week video, or if a big news story breaks, I'll come up here and talk about it, because I have been doing that lately. And hopefully no one will die, and I won't have to come up here and talk about that either. So as long as no mega bombshells drop in the world of wrestling this week, you won't hear from me again until next Monday night after Raw. And actually, now that I think about it, let me just pre-warn you, I do have some friends in town next week. So there is a possibility that I will not be home to watch Monday Night Raw now that I think about it. I might be home, and if I am, I'll tweet live and I'll do a review just like I always do. But I do have to reserve the right to skip the show, because I might have to. So I'm not quite sure the video schedule the next few days, but rest assured, if you don't hear from me next week, I'll be up here by, next Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest. I will come up here and give you something on Monday Night Raw, and any more news we have on BattleGround or anything like that. So you guys enjoy the rest of your week. I'll catch you in a few days. Until next time, peace.